Welcome back, folks. Today I'm taking a look at a pretty well-known Christian couple here on YouTube. As far as I know, they're on YouTube. They may be on other social platforms. I'm talking about Morgan and Paul. I know they call themselves Paul and Morgan, but we'll get into... we'll discuss that in just a little bit. I'm coming from a place where I used to be a very conservative extremist Christian. I grew up that way, and shortly after I left for college, I started to deconstruct how I believed about my Christian faith, and then I came out of the closet, and after studying what I believed to be my Christian faith at the time, it didn't make sense anymore. It felt obsolete, so I dropped it. And for a time, I became an atheist until I started walking down the path of being a pagan, being a druid specifically, okay? I've got a couple of questions that I want to ask of Morgan and Paul and of their social media ministry. And I've got a couple of questions on my sticky note right here on my computer. I'm going to ask about their karmic connection first. This is about their romantic relationship, their marriage partnership. I'm getting the word inauthentic when it comes to them. Mismatched is something that came up when I started to think about them, started to get into their energy. So today I am working with the 7th Sphere Lenormand as well as the Goddess Tarot by Kris Waldherr. And let's get into my first question with not a grand tableau, a portrait spread. This is a 3x3 spread, and I'm shuffling until Spirit asks me to stop. We've got a choice. That's the bottom of the deck, and also the central theme. We've got Mountain as the first card of the first row. I've got Moon. I've got Book, and that's the first row. That is both, that's the consciously how they're operating. Their karmic connection is not an easy one. They choose to stay in it, but this is an inauthentic. It's a mysterious choice as to why they made. Mysterious to the people who were closest to them before they got married. Why did they choose each other? I've never watched their channel. I've watched clips of them through other channels. I don't know much about how they got together, right? I knew that they had more secular-ish pasts before they got it. I don't know their story, okay? But I remember them being a little bit more worldly, if you will, before they got together. On the second row, next to Crossroad, is Bear. Dominance. And I kind of get that energy from Paul, that he's a deeply dominant character who needs to be in contexts where power is easily ceded or given to him. And on the other side of Crossroad is the House. And that's the 3 cards on the second row. That's about the present circumstance. So right away I can see Paul as being an extremely domineering figure in the home. And there's stuff that goes on behind closed doors that nobody sees, that intuitive people who've been in those kinds of circumstances before might be able to say, I see an issue right there. There are things showing through the cracks in the things that they unconsciously reveal. There are things that people can see that put them off, especially if they're close to this particular couple. Absolutely a karmic connection. This is a fateful choice that has had long-term consequences and which continues to have consequences going into the future for their children as well. I've got birds for the first card of the third row. That's a whole lot of drama. That's a whole lot of chatter. That's a messy situation. And I'm looking at their past. That's the column, right? The first column, all the way to the left, is mountain, bear, and birds. That's about this being an incredibly dramatic, difficult situation. When Paul came into the picture, he became a domineering, very, very overpowering kind of force. I wonder if Morgan wasn't fearful of him, like, not in that kind of, oh, I'm in awe of your powers, right? But genuinely afraid of him. And I wonder if he didn't manipulate her into circumstances that normally she would have said no to if he had been a less powerful individual. I feel like that she struggles with boundary issues in this particular relationship, and I feel like she does and says stuff that I just pulled the Lily card, and this is all about sex. And I do remember watching clips of them where they were very uncomfortable talking about sex, like Morgan was giggling like a little kid. I was like, you're a married woman. Why are you behaving? You're a married adult woman. Why are you behaving like this? I thought something was off with their sexual relationship right then. And this is their present circumstance. I just discussed their past with mountain, bear, and birds. Here, in their present circumstance, the middle column, I've got moon, I've got crossroad, and I've got lily. There's stuff that goes on during the dark of night. I feel like she doesn't choose the circumstances that she doesn't choose the things, the sexual things that take place. This is unconscious. I feel like there's a lot of drama that goes on beneath the surface. There's a lot of mind chatter for him, not so much for him, but definitely for her. I feel like she is coerced, manipulated once again into sexual scenarios that benefit him, that get him off really easily, that make him feel good, but she feels not that great, even feels like shit after they're done. I'm wondering if there isn't an abusive sexual relationship going on here that he's framing as a BDSM relationship. And I'll be the first to tell you, as someone who has spent time in the BDSM community, that the sub is ultimately in control. The sub says, we're stopping, and the dominant must stop. Consent, loving, aware, sober consent is absolutely the key to a healthy BDSM relationship, and I do not see this here. This is stuff that Paul does not like to talk about, that they do not talk about. When I saw those very old clips, now they're decently old, pre-COVID, okay, like so years ago at this point, she was deeply uncomfortable while he was trying to be just kind of grounded in how they talked, or at least give the affect, give the veneer of someone who was grounded when they talked about their sexual situations. I felt like there was something off. And I know I've already said that, but I'm really seeing how this is still coming through in the present situation. There's something off. Lily, I noticed, lands on the house of the coffin, which is all about repression. I wonder if he doesn't force her to have anal sex so that he can picture himself doing stuff that he might have done with men. If he were in the kind of community, if he were in the kind of mindset and spirituality that would permit him, coming from his angle, okay, that would permit him to have sex and have romantic relationships with men. This is just something that popped into my head. All of this is allegedly for entertainment purposes only. I'm tapping into their energy, and it's not a good one, is all I'll say. Coercing her to do stuff that she doesn't want to do. Look at this. She's forced to do stuff that she doesn't want to do. Now that the future column is complete, that's the third and final row on the right, I've got book, I've got house, and I've got anima. I've got Morgan. And now I kind of understand a little bit better why Spirit wanted this video to be called Morgan and Paul. In the future, I see her revealing secrets about what's going on behind closed doors. Literally, I feel like after a time that they might go their separate ways, that they might get a divorce, possibly initiated by her, we'll see, and that she's going to start revealing about what was actually happening. When she felt deeply uncomfortable, she might have been afraid that he was going to reveal stuff that she really did not want out there. Those are her things to talk about. Now, this is interesting. I believe that this is landing on either the house. I think this is ending. Hang on. Let me confront some stuff. Let me do some research first, okay? Okay, so I was just confirming that anima landed on the house of the bouquet, and I thought it was the scythe, but I also see in my head the scythe, that she's going to become an ex-partner of his. But also, I'm hoping that she will make friends with people who have been through similar circumstances as she, and that she's going to be able to recover from this. I do sense her being deeply afraid, subconsciously afraid. I don't know how aware she is of this. I don't know if she's aware of why she's so afraid of people talking about her very fucked up sex life, rape life, if you can call it that. I'm pretty confident that the cards are indicating, is what I should say. The cards are indicating that there's a fine line between what she wants, between rape and sexual intercourse with Paul for her. This is an incredibly fucked up situation. When we talk about, like, the corner cards, for instance, I do see her revealing later on, gossiping, her stuff getting into the gossip channels, if you will, spill sesh, for instance, tea spill, whatever you want to call it. She is going to be talking about that, and I'm concerned that she could run to those gossip channels as a way to get her story out there when she needs to be, should be more measured about this. Monetizing it, if she can, okay? Finding a way for it to benefit her in the future. She is going to talk about this. She is going to reveal stuff to people in the future. I don't know how far in the future that's going to be. Not so distant future, if that makes any sense. No specific time frame, and there doesn't have to be a specific time frame. All I can see here is in the future, she's not going to keep her mouth shut about this, and she shouldn't. I do see that in the future, we've got future diagonal right here. We've got mountain, crossroad, and anima. She's got difficulties to deal with for years to come after she leaves Paul. She's got stuff to deal with years and years into the future. I feel like her Christian, or at least the Christian upbringing, the Christian miasma of doctrine, if you will, is part of what has influenced her to stay in a messy situation. It influenced her to see a messy, fucked up situation where this Paul is just someone who tends towards drama, at least inside the home, right? I wonder if her Christian faith, possibly she was a new Christian when she met him, I don't know. But it may have influenced her to say, he's trying his best, he's getting onto a better path, he's becoming a man of God. She saw his fucked up nature, for some odd reason, as something to be admired and not something to run away from. And those are choices that are going to follow her into the future, because, again, I think that she has 2 children, if I'm not mistaken, with Paul. I hear that there's one on the way. I could be completely off base there, okay? I didn't do research before this video. I like to go in cold, having lived under a rock, so to speak. I don't keep up with a lot of these people. No more from this one. It's a rough read. That was about their karmic connection. And what I mean by karmic is that there's a lot of karmic debt. The balance is being thrown off. That's what karma, that's the divine, that's the larger balance, has been thrown off. And so when a relationship consistently throws off balance, something has to give at some point in the future. The house of cards must fall. It is not a stable foundation. They can talk about how firm their marriage is because it's on Jesus Christ or on Yahweh or whoever. But that's not the reality. They're selling you an image because that's what sells very easily in the United States. It is inevitable that this image will fall apart because not even Yahweh is blessing this particular marriage. He's protecting Morgan. He's protecting their children. But he has punishment, I should say Yahweh has punishment in store, from what I'm hearing, has punishment in store for Paul that is not to be taken lightly by anyone in his circle. That includes Morgan, his children, his family, his friends. His karmic retribution is going to be powerful and will blow back on not just him, but on the people around him. And unfortunately on Morgan and their children, because they are in close proximity to Paul. Paul is out of alignment and is disobedient to his God that he claims to worship. This is someone who seeks drama, who seeks attention, who is an attention seeker. God will not bless this. This is not spiritual maturity, and I don't need to worship Yahweh or even communicate directly with Yahweh. I'm hearing what Yahweh believes through my own guides. I don't have to have that alignment in order to see that Paul is out of alignment, allegedly, for entertainment purposes only, with the God that he claims to worship. I'm going to move on to the next question. I'll be right back. My next question is, what will their children inherit as far as their parents' legacy? Their religious, their spiritual legacy. I am using the Goddess Tarot. I am putting no reversals. Okay. Spirit says no reversals, but we will be shuffling extensively or until Spirit tells me to stop. The Goddess Tarot is a highly feminine-centered, sorry, my kitty cat's coming in, is a very feminine-centered tarot deck, and I really like using it for readings that are more centered around the feminine, especially around the divine feminine. And I should say that this covers all gender expressions of any kind of femininity. You can consider yourself to be a man, right? You can call yourself by he, him pronouns, but there's still a feminine aspect of you that must be nourished. So this is for everybody, regardless of their gender expression. But I also feel like this is really specifically for Morgan and not so much for Paul, because I believe his heart is closed to the truth. He wants what he wants, and that's how he's symbolized by the bear that we had in the Lenormand spread. This fell down. 5 of Staves. A troublesome, battlesome individual. This is not a smooth running marriage. We've got the 5 of Staves. This is competition, and it's interesting that these are 5 women. There's no support really for Morgan inside the relationship, but outside, I wonder if that isn't a different story. I wonder if old friends and family members aren't kind of going to bat for her. Just making sure I'm still recording, okay? We've got the King of Cups, and traditionally this would be the Queen of Cups, but in this case the King takes a consort status, if you will, to the Queen. This would normally be the Queen of Cups. This is about water on water energy. This shouldn't be hard for them to get a divorce and flow their separate ways. She's a deeply feeling individual. She can be deeply compassionate, but I also feel like she's often on the defense right here. And it's interesting, I asked about what their children will inherit. It looks like their mom is a deeply caring individual, but they're going to inherit the idea that a house like theirs is supposed to be, like their threshold will be, a contentious home. And he might be the kind of person to also kind of imitate Morgan's energy and shroud his true nature in being a compassionate, loving individual when he is anything but. I do feel like he's an abusive individual. We have the Hierophant here, found in Juno, also known as Hera, the wife of Zeus. This is someone, or I should say God, is watching over this. God is not female, but there is a feminine aspect to their Yahweh that is paying very close attention to what's going on here and is trying to bless and protect Morgan to the exclusion of Paul. I feel like Paul is on the outside as far as Yahweh is concerned until he can get his shit together. We've got the Moon, also known as Artemis or Diana. Diana/Artemis looked over women who were pregnant and going through childbirth specifically. And if something happened to the individual who was in labor, if that individual passed away, then it was attributed to Artemis, also Diana. Okay. She's a virgin, also known as the Huntress. There's something going on underneath the surface, far below the surface. They don't allow anyone to know how contentious their marriage, their relationship is. Morgan doesn't allow it to know how deeply uncomfortable her relationship with Paul makes her. It doesn't fit. This was a mismatch, and she feels it very fundamentally right here. She feels it, but also feels like God could be commanding her to stay when in fact Yahweh is not commanding her to stay away. It's interesting, Juno, also known as Hera, was the patron goddess of wives specifically, and those who had been cheated on by their romantic partners. I'm not saying that Paul is a cheater, but he might be emotionally cheating, is what popped into my head. And he might be so strict on himself that he is not, okay? Please take that with a grain of salt. He might be keeping everything inside the relationship with Morgan. But then there's the sexual abuse that I perceived him foisting upon Morgan, okay? The Moon is also about the universe, their deities, guiding them through a very difficult scenario, through the darkest night, if you will. These fights have become pretty constant, at least within Morgan herself. There's something that she is doubting when it comes to their relationship. It shouldn't feel this contentious, and yet she stays because she feels like it's the right thing to do. The children will learn this from them, and they're not going to know why this is going on. The best thing that she can do is to move away from Paul, to divorce, and to share custody of the kids as best as she possibly can. This is going to be hard for Morgan because she's had children, because she has felt like she's had to have children with somebody who is deeply domineering, who takes agency away from her. She faces a choice. This lands on top of the King of Cups, also known as the Queen of Cups in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith. She's got a choice to make, but it's hard. Water, when you've got that water-on-water energy found in the King of Cups, there are no boundaries. There's not earth in the card to create boundaries for her. So this is going to be a hard uphill battle for her to choose. But to go through the darkest night herself, to do the shadow work, and she wouldn't call it shadow work because she's not a pagan, okay? But to do the deep soul searching, she might say, to figure out why she was attracted to this particular individual, to figure out how she can get out, to figure out how she can avoid falling into a similar relationship with another individual like Paul, if you will. That is incumbent on her. She needs to raise her vibrations, again from the pagan angle. She needs to raise her vibrations and seek those who actually love her and want the very, very best for her. Not from people who she sees as commanding, because I feel like she got commanding, domineering, confused with being a man of God, being someone who sought God. Ideally, Paul should be here as the King of Cups. This should be connected to Paul. It isn't. This is Morgan. He's not in his feelings. He's avoiding them. If he were to listen to them, then he might pick up on how displeased God is with him. You do not abuse your wife. You do not. Is this how Jesus treats the church? By no means. You leave her alone, is what I'm getting. She's going to have to leave. Choose to leave, and it's going to be hard. I wonder if she isn't going to go through a particularly rough fight before she finally makes the choice to leave. Or I wonder if there isn't going to be an extended period of them just not working on a fundamental molecular level. And from that point on, she's going to be forced to move on. God will be blessing this moving on. Do you see that? God will be blessing that. God wants her to do that, but he also understands that she needs to get to the stage where she knows that this cannot go on any further. She knows. She'll be faced with a choice, and I'm hoping that she picks the very best one possible. More sword energy. There's going to be a time, this is landing on top of the Five of Wands, the Moon, and the you got the Eight of Swords on top of all that. There's going to be a time where she doesn't see clearly why this is happening to her. She's going to wonder if she didn't make a mistake. What could she have done better? And that's going to take time for her to say that she did everything that she possibly could, that this was always someone who was going to be destructive, that she did not deserve this, that she always deserved better, that he deserved to become a better person, right? He could have just as easily chosen to reach towards his best and his highest good. He is not. So far, he feels like everything that's happened has been confirmation that he's on the right track, because he chooses to see what he wants to see. He does not follow his intuition. She's going to miss what she thought she had. There will be times where she will miss this. And I should also say the children will miss this too. Even when relationships are on the outs, when they are failing, collapsing, their kids are going to miss it. They're going to miss mom and dad together. This is going to be a rough choice that she knows she's going to have to make in order to give her children stability. Because if her relationship with Paul is not stable, then how can she provide a stable upbringing for her children? And I do get the feeling that she has like primary child rearing responsibility, right? I don't get the feeling that he's a father who's like, I will take over for the kids for the next 24 to 48 hours or whatever have you. I feel like he's someone who says that child rearing is women's work. And I feel like that he's kind of hands off as far as like, he's the rule setter, he's the discipline giver, but he's not the one who is there to help the kids when they're sick. He is not there to hold them when they're crying about something being under the bed. Paul is not a nurturing individual towards children is what I'm getting. And even then, they're going to miss that. She, though, has the ability to become the Empress. It's not just about fertility here, in the literal sense, but it's about God blessing her choice because it lands on top of the Six of Swords and on top of the Hierophant. This is about God blessing her to become the woman that she was always meant to become. She might have an incredibly lucrative business for herself. She might have some great social media outlets, for instance, that bring her a lot of attention and allow her to support herself and her kids. It'll be a way for her to give a stability for her kids that she always wanted but could never have while she was in such a contentious marriage relationship with Paul. It's going to be hard for a while. Those swords indicate that this is going to be rough, but it won't always be that way if she chooses to make that choice. And if she chooses that, then her children have the ability to have a much richer legacy than they had if their parents had stayed together. Misfit marriage is what I'm getting. I don't know that Morgan and Paul were ever supposed to come together. I feel like Paul is Morgan's massive life lesson. To trust only certain people and to keep everybody else out. Because she is the Empress. She is all the queens summarized into one entity. And all she has to do is to realize that. Paul has his own work to do. No more from this particular spread. I'm going to move on to my third and my final question. Be right back. My last question is, why are they / Paul running this social media ministry? Interesting. And specifically, Spirit says looks are deceiving. So I don't get the feeling that Morgan is in control, hardly at all. I feel like she goes along with Paul says and does. So my question should be, why is Paul running this social media industry with the idea that looks are deceiving? We're going to do one more 7th Sphere Lenormand spread, and I will again shuffle until Spirit asks me to stop. Once again, we come up with the Birds card. He wants the attention. He wants the chatter to be around him because he feels like, I wonder if he isn't one of those people who feels like all attention's good attention, right? Spirit's saying wrong, utterly wrong when it comes to him. Got the Anima card once again. It's interesting. She's facing away from this. She doesn't want to take part in this. She's the kind of person I feel like who likes a more quiet, away from the public eye kind of lifestyle, and he's not giving that to her. Now here we've got another bird. These are cycles doing the same thing over and over again, but things are a little bit different each time the cycle starts over again. So things are gradually changing for her each time she's forced to interact with their social media ministry, okay? She's a deeply isolated individual. I feel like self-help is the word that pops into my mind. She might be reading self-help books because she feels like she can't really talk to anybody about what's going on behind the scenes with their social media ministry. She feels utterly unstable, and she feels like self-help books, self-help blogs, or videos are the only place that she can really go for advice without them really pressing her as to why she's staying. It feels like this is a process that needs to occur gradually, and I see with Stork there's a bit of luck coming up in the future when it comes to how isolated she is. Once again, Paul doesn't appear in this particular spread. I saw him as the bear and not as the animus, which would have been the man card in the traditional Lenormand. He's not here. He only sees his God-given authority. And he only sees his power. He's a rough individual. He's not a good person, dude. He wears the veneer of someone who is. But he's not a good person. I wonder if she isn't looking to get away. Not right now, but like abstractly. I wonder if there aren't feelings of, I just want a permanent, solid break from all of this mess. And I think I kind of answered the question earlier. Why is he running this social media ministry? Because it gives him power. That's it. It makes him feel good. All attention is good attention. Or the kind of attention that he wants is the best kind of attention. I'm hoping that she gets lucky when it comes to how isolated she is. There's quite a bit of risk that goes with this, with being so isolated, along with quite a bit of reward. Being married in her particular Christian culture is a very important thing for her, for that culture. And it's kind of a taboo to be divorced and to be a single mom. And I understand when a lot of women in that culture kind of scramble to get back into another partnership or scramble to get back to reconcile with their partner, because divorce to this day is still a taboo. It says that you weren't able to get things together. There's a moral failing that God hates divorce, right? Even though I do believe in the Bible that God establishes divorce specifically for the ancient Hebrew people, right? He gives women the right to divorce, which was kind of unusual in that particular culture, especially when you look at the Middle East now. I don't know how often women initiate divorces. Please, if I'm being uneducated, please feel free to educate me. But I do remember that being kind of a unique thing for the ancient Hebrew Israelites, okay? She sees how leaving this particular ministry could be, leaving his social media ministry, could bankrupt her, could cause her to be in poverty, especially if she is going to be responsible for custody of the children. She can see how risky it is to hop out of her isolation and move towards things that would benefit her, to help her feel free again. She can sense that abstractly under the surface. This is not something that she consciously connects to, that she consciously confronts. It's just a feeling of, I can't leave because there's too much writing on this. This isn't her ministry at all. Once again, she goes along with this. This isn't what she wants. So, what I was hoping with this particular reading is that it would help people understand how being a fake religious person is only running up a karmic debt for us, for you even. I hope I'm not speaking to someone who's running up a karmic debt by putting a religious face out there that isn't authentic. And also to be aware of people who claim to be prophets of God or prophets of whoever, and who in fact are some of the worst, most fucked up people under the surface possible. Stay away from these people. Morgan's not in a good place at all, and Paul is not a leader to emulate, or to be proud of, or to pay attention to. He's just as lost as anyone that he claims to be trying to save. With that, no more from me. Thank you for watching. If you got all the way to the end of this video, I hope you have a great day.